Welcome again to our fall webinar series, doctoral webinar series. I am going to take a moment to turn it over to Dr. Mason, our assistant professor, who will talk about our admissions programs here within the department.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jamal. I appreciate it. For some reason, it is only sharing the one I shouldn't be sharing. Pardon me. Let me try this again. All right, I'm going to close this other thing, and we're going to try this one. Okay, let's try it again. Technology. All right, we're in the right place now. Let's do this and we're good. All right, so thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Dana Mason. I'm an assistant professor in educational technology. And I just want to give you a brief little intro about our educational technology department and what we offer. We are nationally recognized. Our EdTech department is nationally recognized first for affordability and student-centered learning. The MA program is ranked third nationally for an online technology program, and our doctoral program is ranked ninth nationally for affordability and return on investment. So we have a few degree programs that we offer. Our MA in Ed Tech is a 36 credit fully online program. So that means it's online and asynchronous. We do project-based learning, so there aren't quizzes and tests all over the place. It is all project based, so you can work on what you're learning, do it through the lens of your background and your professional experience, and then add that in to your daily practice. The same with our Masters in Ed Tech Specialization School Library Media. We have the same type of format, but this helps you get your certification in New Jersey for SLMS, School Library Media. As we know, our library media spaces are not like they were 20 and 30 years ago, and they're infused with lots of technology and project-based learning. So it gives a great opportunity to learn those extra skills and be able to transition into a new area of um, the school building and whatnot. We also have our Ed D in Educational Technology Leadership. This is a 60 credit program, 3 years, and students move through it in cohorts. We're also online and asynchronous. We just have 1 week in the summer for Summer Institute, which we like to call Hard Fun. And that's probably one of the best weeks you have every year in the summer. You get a chance to meet everybody and you do a lot of great learning and a lot of applied skills there as well. So for people who are looking for higher attainment or just to upskill a little bit, we have different certificate programs. One is our Assistive Technology Specialist Certificate. It's a 1 year fully online on asynchronous program as well. There are 5 courses total, and they're transferable to the MA program. The students that are in this program will get a certificate from us for completing the program, and it's also a great way to do credit recovery for students looking to enter grad school who need a little extra boost to the GPA. We also have a STEM certificate, which is 4 courses total. This is 12 credits, and we learn about convergence education, STEM and STEAM education, and how we work that into any possible subject you teach, whether it's music, language arts, math, you name it. It could be a STEM subject or beyond. This helps you integrate that into your practice, which is really exciting. And of course, it's also something that you obtain by going through our STEM MA and our MA in Ed Tech and MA in School Library Media Specialist. So I don't want to talk forever about these things because we have a really great presentation for you tonight. What I will do is add the information at the bottom of the screen. Should you have questions, you're interested, we've piqued your curiosity, or you have a burning desire to get started tomorrow, wherever you fall, I'll provide that information in the chat. So be sure to check before we get started. In the meantime, I am going to pass it over to Jamal.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mason. So we're going to begin our presentation this evening. Again, the title of this presentation is Trailblazers of AI Teaching, the ChatGPT Adoption Story. The presenters this evening are, of course, Dr. Dana Mason. She is an assistant professor in the Department of Educational Technology Leadership. Prior to moving into higher education, she served in various capacities of K-12 education, primarily as a STEAM educator focusing on arts and technology integration. Her research and publications focus on convergence education and supporting educators through effective professional development of emerging technology trends. Dr. Mason trained at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center as an educator in Space Academy and earned the Commander's Cup Award for Teamwork and Leadership in 2018, and the New Jersey Governor's Educator of the Year Award in 2020 for her school. She has had global experience working with students and educators in Asia, in South America, and is passionate about inspiring educators of all disciplines to embrace technology and 21st century learning. Our second presenter is Dr. Laura Zeiger. She is the professor and chairperson of the Department of Educational Technology. Her research interests currently focus on online learning, social computing applications in education, and transformation of teaching and learning with emerging technologies, including robotics, immersive virtual environments, and drones. Dr. Z has published and presented widely, including a recent co-publication by ISTE, Drones in Education, Let Your Students' Imaginations Soar. She is also a consultant for schools and organizations. Without further ado, I turn it over to Dr. Mason and Dr. Z.
Thank you so much, Jamal. Appreciate that. So I'm going to just start us off by telling you that we're going to be talking about our research that Dr. Mason, myself, and Dr. Schamberg published a research study that we conducted recently. And so we're going to talk about that study, but we're also going to talk about some of the things that are related to the work that we're doing with that study, and then also a little bit about the methodology. So that way we give you a well-rounded view of what is artificial intelligence, educational uses of AI, trailblazers of AI teaching, which is what our research was about, using how teachers are using ChatGPT. And we did that by doing some scraping of TikTok. So we're going to talk a little bit about how teachers are adopting TikTok to teach and learn. So that's basically the agenda for the evening. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Mason, to start us off.
Thanks so much, Dr. Ziegler. So, the burning question, what is AI? I love this one. I think it's really important because we're setting the stage for a new disruptor that's come into the field of education a few years ago. And there's a lot of questions, a lot of thoughts, and I'm hearing a lot of feedback from the field where people are referring to AI as this big general thing. But it really is, there's specific areas, and we're not dealing with every aspect of AI. So some people have their thoughts and their opinions, and some people love it, some people are having challenges with it, but we don't want to just kind of stigmatize the whole thing. So let's break down and talk about a little of what we're working with. So on our next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the family of AI. So I love this graphic. It kind of situates them one in the other and kind of nests the different areas and shows the bucket with that gets filled up and how each one contributes to the other. So artificial intelligence in general, we know is a program that can sense, reason, act, and adapt. So what we're used to with that is more of the natural language processing, the large language models that focuses on ChatGPT, Claude, DALL-E, Copilot, any sort of robotic assistance, that kind of a thing would fall under the general AI. Then we go to the next, which is a little more specific, and this is machine learning. So this is stuff that we're all very familiar with, but maybe don't always think about it because it just interacts with us on the daily. Machine learning focuses more on spam filters, product recommendations, social media optimization, voice to text, predictive text. I know that when I'm texting and I'm in a rush, I love that it predicts what I'm about to say. In the beginning, it did not do it accurately. So I had to get used to it. And of course, like everything, as you use it more, it learns more. And now it's a really lovely little thing I can do to send more accurate text messages or emails and things like that. Of course, it doesn't always apply, but there are things that over time it has learned more, and now it's a lot more accurate and I can rely on it. We also have stuff. Think about the other thing that I enjoy too is in deep learning. We're going to talk about this. This is more of a subset of machinery that's learning where multi-layered neural networks learn from vast amounts of data. So that's a different area altogether. And we're seeing that in customer experience chatbots. I love that example because 10, 15 years ago, you'd get a chat bot on the phone or, that you'd be talking to online and trying to get answers. And I have the habit of skipping it because it was always so inaccurate. It was just prefab like 10 FAQ answers, and I'm a complicated gal, so I always have a complicated question. So there was only so much it could do to help me. And I remember skipping over it and just being like, nope, I'm done with this. I hate this thing. I don't know what it is. But now I can interact with them and they actually not only direct me accurately, sometimes it solves my complicated problem before I had a chance to even, dismiss it and get annoyed. So that's a great thing. It's come a long way. And as it learns more, and as we use it more, it learns and it grows, and the interaction is much more accurate. So I love that as a great example of deep learning. And that does differ from other things, but the same general overarching idea of artificial intelligence, the more we use it, the more it will become more accurate for us. Another example of that is facial recognition, colorizing black and white images. So where, they have to decide which pixels actually relate to which colors to make it make sense in the photo. And of course, autonomous vehicles, which is a new thing we're starting to see. So on our next slide is just a few more examples of what different things in AI can exist in everyday life. So it's not just all the large language models, although that's what we're seeing mostly in education right now that we're working with, but we're seeing it in banking, facial recognition. We talked about digital assistants. We're seeing it in our emails. I mean, when you are in a lot of ways too, like when you're shopping or you're on social media, certain things are optimized and it's not always helpful, but in some ways I'd prefer to get certain ads over others if it's something that doesn't relate to my lifestyle or my needs. So in ways like that, it can make things much more efficient. And in some ways it's too predictive, it's a little too invasive. So we can adjust our filters as we go. But the main idea I bring up about this is that AI is there's nothing new under the sun. This we've been living with for quite a long time and we've been training it as we go. So the new thing that we're talking about here is natural language processors or AI large language models. So these are the ones that we're starting to see now in the classroom that students are learning how to use, that teachers are learning how to use, and trying to find ways to include those into our professional practice. And one of there are many different ones that are out there now, but this is just a short list of some. Of course, ChatGPT, I think most people are quite familiar with, and especially the Gemini and some of the others. Claude is great for research. Copilot is the Microsoft version of it. ChatGPT is owned by OpenAI. So there are different companies, like Gemini is the Google product. So there are different ones to consider. ClickUp is a great thing to check into if you're not familiar with it. It's a wonderful thing that you have it as a Chrome extension and students can interact with it a little differently. It allows them to kind of collaborate with with an AI without having to be in a group of people, and that helps them with idea generation and coming up with new innovative ideas for some of the work that they're doing in class. I like Spinbot is another tool that I think is quite helpful. It's a language rephrasing tool with Spinbot. I love this for all of us, but also for people who might be like English language learners. I know when I'm learning new languages, I tend to stick to the same phrases, and so do kids, so does anybody when they're developing their native language or beyond. But it helps us kind of differentiate our learning so that we can, and our writing, so we can be better writers. It doesn't sound as repetitive, and it gives us new options. So I love that. You learn different ways to say things within that same language, and that's what Spinbot does. You put in your common phrases, or you could put in an essay that you've written, and it'll pick out things that are kind of that could be differentiated in the way you've said it, so you don't feel as repetitive. I also enjoy using OpenAI Playground. This one's a great, this is also a company of ChatGPT, OpenAI. They work with, it's like an open space where students can, and anybody actually can put in ideas, and then it goes back and forth with you as that extra collaborative partner. Like a brainstorming session where you're coming up with the best, you have like 15 good ideas, but you have to hone it to the best one that you can put out if you have a product or a project. So this is something that helps students, and not only during the end of the pandemic where some people were still isolating was this helpful, but it's proven a great tool as well, because sometimes we don't have the time to go and be in public or be collaborating with other people. So if you're working in your office and you have an hour to get something done and you just want to really think some things out, OpenAI Playground is a great way to mess around with some ideas and really expand upon some of the things you're doing. So on our next slide, these are just some examples. We're finding in the research that we'll talk about a little later that large language models and ChatGPT and a lot of these products are helping us with teacher productivity. So from day to day, we know, especially if you're in the K to 12 world, I'm sure in every space, but I'm speaking to that because that's where a lot of my experience comes from. Between the challenges of dealing with day-to-day interactions of students, lesson planning, making sure every student is differentiated and they receive what they need, keeping parents updated, making sure that there's just a million things that happen throughout the day. And sometimes taking time to make sure everything, it just the amount of paperwork and the amount of administrative work to do can be daunting. And as more needs are kind of being put on the shoulders of educators, there's less time to do more. So I look to this, especially something like ChatGPT and these large language models, because they can help us alleviate some of that stress in an administrative area. You can do things with checking tone, creating a parent letter if you need correspondence. I like this as an option too, because as you're working with them, you're putting in the main ideas. You can put in a great prompt that states, I want to explain to a parent something that happened in class today, and put the general nature of things. And it'll help you with a starting letter. From there, you can take it and then you can customize it the way you want. Make sure that it has the right tone. There are days where you might be frustrated and you have to remove that tone from the language. And so it may take longer to do. You can write however you want, stick it into ChatGPT, and it'll actually ease up the tone that you have and some of the things that you have. You can ask it to write it in a professional manner, write it in a very like an encouraging manner, write it in a serious tone, and it will change the letter you have so that it can meet the needs of what you're looking to come across. So it's just a little extra help there. You can do things with developing main ideas for an assessment. So if you have a chapter that you're working on with your students, if you put that into ChatGPT, it will outline things and pop out the main ideas from it. So you'll be able to work on that to use as a study guide, or teach your children how to do that with a study guide on things. I was one of those kids that when I read books and read things, I got interested in all the stuff that was probably not going to be on the test. And I'd go down that rabbit hole and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This one was wearing a purple whatever. And I had this whole Technicolor idea and I was so interested and engaged in the story. But some of the main ideas, they weren't lost on me. I just didn't think they were as main as other people thought. So this helped, this kind of a thing would have helped me as a student. It's kind of like the Cliffs Notes, but you can create it as you go, and it almost refocuses some of those neurodivergent learners who might get excited about something that they're going a far afield on. Then, oh, okay, yeah, I see why that's important too. Let's go back on track. So that really is a wonderful thing as a study guide, but also for educators trying to develop their quizzes, their different types of standards and things that they're coming up with. If you're doing lesson planning and you're going through all of your lesson ideas, you can come up with this and it will help you create a lesson plan based on a few different types of chapters. It'll align it to your core curriculum content standards, depending on which your district requires and what your subject matter requires. And a lot of times, it'll help you think of things that maybe you missed or you didn't realize that's another opportunity to work in. Or maybe you were already doing it and ChatGPT pulls it out and says, do you realize you're also doing this extra standard as well? Which looks great on your lesson plans and helps you make those connections, not only with your students, but oftentimes with your administrators who are evaluating. So that helps well too. I love this also for differentiating activities. So regardless of what classroom you have, you might be an inclusion classroom, you might be a self-contained class, you might be a gen ed class, you might be a specials class, which means you have a little of everything all at once with everybody's learning types. You're going to have students where you know what their best learning features are and how to help reach everyone. If you get a new student and you're still learning about how to kind of reach them, you want some new ideas, or you have to maybe change your lessons on the spot, do something a little different than what you were expected because there's an assembly day or a change in the schedule. You can use ChatGPT to help you with differentiating some of the activities if you're developing something quickly. And that'll take a lot of the administrative time so that you can you get some new ideas and you can expand upon them with your expertise. It's never something that's truly going to replace the work that you have to do, but it can help you do it a little more effectively, maybe a little faster and a little more efficiently so that you can meet the needs of your students and the community that you're servicing. I like it also for creating different types of meeting agendas. You can also put minutes in if you wanted to after a meeting and then come up with agenda points that you can adjust for your next upcoming meeting. And recommendation letters are a great way to go as well, where we have oftentimes when it's recommendation letter season, if you're teaching in middle school and high school, the fall is a busy, busy time. And so is the spring, even with scholarships and things. When you have students' resumes and some of the things that they've done, you can incorporate information into ChatGPT as well as the prompt for what the scholarship or the recommendation letter should be. And it'll help you with starting out with a basis of what a good letter could look like. Then you have to go back and customize it. That's the only thing. You can't just copy and paste anything. But it does help you get started and you can refine it in different ways. I also also urge people to remember, though, that because you're putting it into a large language model, it's out there in the public. So whatever you do with student data, the same security measures apply. You have to make sure that you're not putting anything, no contact info, no names, just keep it generic. But things that people have done, things they've achieved, you can put that in because it's generic enough if you don't have the identifying information. Before we go on to the next slide, Dr. Ziegler, did you want to add anything to those? I know you have a lot of experience with this, with using ChatGPT as well.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, no, I'm actually conducting another study now where we're just starting it, where I'm looking at how ChatGPT can be an assistant to grading processes. And I've tried putting in assignments and rubrics and have it grade student papers and give me feedback, etc. And it's pretty interesting. Stay tuned for the results because it can be really an additive to grading, but I would really watch what you do with using it because it doesn't always do what it says it's going to do, or it really hallucinates quite a bit. So when
Right.
you say about, you have to put in your personal touch, absolutely. And every time you're using it, I use ChatGPT all the time, but I check it every time and I change it every time. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. But that was a great list, Dr. Mason. I appreciate that. I'm going
Sure.
to now go on to talk a little bit. Now you get the idea of why we're excited about what ChatGPT and language models can do in teaching and learning. There's really a huge mass of information out there that you can look up, Google search very simply, and it'll give you ideas. But what we found was, okay, we want to understand how teachers are using it, and surveys are a great way to get information. But one of the ways to find information is to go where teachers are. And so this is why we went on to the social media platform TikTok. TikTok was created by the Chinese tech giant ByteDance almost 10 years ago, believe it or not, under Douyin was the name. Basically, it was a replacement for Facebook or Instagram, which are both banned in China. So TikTok became very famous because, as you all know, the AI component of it, it delivers targeted content. So when, for example, when our senators and Congress were talking about TikTok, and one of them stood up and said, how come, TikTok is just all young girls dancing? And everybody went, hee, we know what you're looking at, so it's targeted to your preference. But he didn't know that, but we do. Anyway, by September of 2021, TikTok had more than 1 billion monthly active users. And in April of 22, it became the most downloaded app in the whole world. So it's definitely a force. How did it rise? Well, in January, we know that it restricted researchers from using hashtags to search. So if we wanted to just, look up hashtag teachers, that would probably be fine because they allow about 100 hashtags by industry. But if we wanted to look up ChatGPT for teachers as a hashtag, we did when we started this research to see what would come up, but today you can't do it. TikTok is sort of restricting how researchers are able to get into the data now. In March, as you know, in 24, the government enforced a ban, and they said either sell it because of national security issues. There was a deadline of September 17th. That deadline is come and gone. And apparently there are US investors in TikTok, and it's pretty much here to stay as far as we know. So moving on to, what about teachers on TikTok? Well, teachers are really creating influential platforms on TikTok, and it's positively impacting the profession. It's become a way for teachers to educate, inspire, entertain. I mean, some of these teachers that you see here in these photos, this is actual teachers that are on TikTok. They're showing lessons, they're showing professional development in really short form that's very entertaining, and they're getting quite a bit of followers. Now, there are some companies that are on TikTok that we found, and when we did that hashtag ChatGPT for teachers, I'll show you, it became an issue because it was a company that sort of took over the hashtag. So instead, we had to find another way, but the hashtag just teacher has 7.4 million posts on TikTok. I mean, it's a huge amount of data that's out there. And how are they using it? Well, they're creating lesson plans. They're generating creative assignments, adapting materials for diverse learners. They're using all the new features. They're talking about the study mode feature. So you can see teachers are really going into what's available and out there, just as if many of you may be familiar with some of the Facebook groups that are available that talk about different ways to use different technologies. Well, that's what's happening now on TikTok in a much bigger way. So what did we do? We took how early adopter teachers, those that are using ChatGPT, and we looked at how they're promoting it in US classrooms by looking at their TikToks. That's basically the gist of what we did, which was just recently published on Teaching and Teacher Education, the June issue, as well as we presented, Dr. Mason and I presented down in Colorado at AERA. They accepted our presentation and we had a great time doing that, talking about this research. So moving on into the research, I'll ask Dr. Mason to talk a little bit about what we did. You're muted.
Sorry, there was background noise. I didn't want to interrupt you. So yeah, this was an exciting study because it was a little different than what I've done in the past, and I really liked that we were able to study something as it was like at the inception when it was starting to come out, and people had different ideas about AI and how it was affecting us in the classroom. And this was such an interesting space of opinions and thoughts. So what we did was we web scraped the TikTok search results for ChatGPT and teachers. And the information was all, as you can see, kind of here, there were so many of these that we had. All the likes, bookmarks, shares, URLs posted. These were different things that we had studied. And it was just for this one range here for 1 year, November 30th through 2022 through November 30th, 2023, posted only by teachers. So anything that was a company, we filtered that out. We had to actually, if you go to the next slide, we kind of went through and we tried to check out some of the different things to make sure that we weren't taking things that our data set was as unbiased and as clear as possible. So in order to do that, we watched every damn one. Coded and recoded. We looked for themes and so many great things that were coming up. But again, we just kept it to teachers and nothing that was monetized for a specific, like a company or anything like that. So we used Atlas TI and we put all of our information, the different data sets in. We imported that from an Excel file. We were able to, if you take a look, if you're in some of our cohorts and you're going to be doing some of your research soon, check out Atlas TI. I know Dr. Schamberg does a lot of work with it and he even has a webinar out there, but it talks about all the different things that you can, the information you can organize, the themes that you can code. You have a whole code book right here. And if you look at the tab that says codes, everything here that it could possibly be, you can set up each and every one. And then it tells you how many you have for each one. So you can see which ones are more current, which ones are more frequent, and what that looks like over time. So it really does help you as a researcher to organize that information. And that's exactly what we did with it. And then the analysis. Dr. Ziegler, would you like to share about that?
Sure, thank you. So from those 205 open codes that were generated from over 250 videos, but that were our cases, we developed 20 major codes from all of that. And from those 20 major codes, we developed 4 themes based on those codes. So to quantitatively analyze it, we had to measure the reach and the resonance, the total views for the major codes. And then for resonance, we looked at those things that you saw in the beginning, how the audience engages in the codes based on likes, comments, and shares in relation to views. So it wasn't simply looking at one thing like, oh, it has this many views. We looked at everything, how people were interacting with all of these different posts. And so the further quantitative analysis was based on the qualitative thematic analysis. Again, taking all of the codes, breaking them down so that then we could then develop the major themes, those that were the most important, had the most resonance and reach. And this is how the codes came out with the total views. And if you notice, addressing student abuses has the most views of any of them as far as the codes go. But we found that that wasn't the one that had the most resonance. That wasn't the one that was actually being talked about and shared. And it was something that was important to people. But really, what they were talking about, in addition to the student abuses, was creating content and promoting applications. There were a bunch of different in the beginning, people talking about this is, a problem, struggles with administration, where students are going to be just plagiarizing. But once those fears were allayed, it became a real conversation about how this is a productivity tool. And so you can kind of see the four themes that we came out with: pragmatism and productivity. So how can we save time? How can we plan units or lessons? Basically, just what Dr. Mason was talking about before, ways in which we can use these to our advantage, right? Differentiation, all of those things. And then some of the other things that were important to teachers and those that were interacting with these influencers. The macro issues, struggling with administration, predicting major changes, anxiety, and uncertainty. We're in a really big time in our lives right now. Things are changing rapidly. And so that's going to be an important issue. Acceptance and promotion is another one, right? Understanding whether you support it or not. A lot of times I hear people say, oh, I hate AI. This is the worst thing. And I think it's because you're not using it to your benefit. I can understand the negatives, don't get me wrong, but there are positives out there. It's sort of like when online checking became a thing. People always like, oh, I'm not using that. It's, and now people are like, yeah, it's the best thing since sliced bread. So, it's just a matter of getting used to something, getting used to how to use it to your advantage. And then finally, of course, that whole innovation and change, right? Using it with your students, having your students actually use it instead of banning it. The importance of a teacher in the relationship, as I kind of mentioned about the whole grading thing, connecting it to entrepreneurship, because obviously this is what our future is about. If you're not sort of learning about AI, you're left behind. A lot of jobs will be lost because of AI, but a lot of jobs will be gained for those people that understand AI and can use it. So there's that as well. So those are the things that sort of came out of our study. The theme of pragmatism and productivity, this is what we talked about originally, and this is really redefining the teacher's role, using AI so that they're saving time, it's helping them do lesson planning or align standards where, we don't need to look up every standard. If we can have AI align our lesson plans to the standards, that's a whole nice little piece. If we can have AI help with the IEPs, and some of the work that's involved with that. And again, we have to be careful because there are ethics involved and information sharing, and it's all new. There really is a new frontier. There's not a lot of rules out there yet. So we have to just use our best common sense judgment as we use it. Then, of course, some of the things that we talked about before, and I'm not going to go back into them again, but here is the report card comments for a kid. You can help it to rewrite it so it sounds better. I oftentimes will use AI. I'll put stuff in if I want to travel somewhere. I'll tell it, give me a travel guide for here or there. It gives me that information. But a lot of times it's wrong. It'll tell me the wrong train schedule. It'll give me something wrong. So you have to go back in, whether it's creating a lesson plan or using a travel guide, you have to go back in and double check it that it is giving you the right information. Most times it will, but those times that it doesn't, you don't want to have the wrong information. So again, even with all of these things, I oftentimes, when I use for my students, when I create assignments, I'll put that assignment into ChatGPT and let it give me a model assignment that I'll often include, so my students can see what is the output of using AI for the assignment. It's a way that they can't then do it themselves because I've already done it. It'll be the same thing. But it's just one way that you can sort of stop the whole use of it as a tool that's for plagiarism. The other thing that I do with almost all of my assignments is I ask AI to make it so that students can't use AI to answer the questions. So it's more personalized, my assignments. You have to use your own personal experience and knowledge to answer the questions. Yes, you can put it into AI when you're done, and it can help to, fix your grammar. It can help outline what you've written. It can do a lot of things that are great. but it hopefully can't answer the assignment question where I'm hoping that you think on your feet. So those are some of the ways that teachers are using AI and talking about using AI. The early adopters were enthusiastically focused on practical applications, right? The other teachers that were interacting were more concerned about the other macro issues we talked about. But and then concerns about cheating are widespread. But again, all of those negative kind of connotations were changed as the year went through, and we saw more positive interactions about the uses and how it can be productive. So with that, we kind of went through quickly, but I'm hoping we have questions from all of you. So let's see. I have our email addresses up here for myself, Dr. Mason, and Dr. Schamberg, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but he's well versed in all of this, as you would know. Questions that you might have, please
Sure.
share.
Thank you so much, Dr. Z and Dr. Mason, for that wonderful presentation. I do open it up to any questions that you may have in the chat, or you are welcome to unmute yourself if you have a question.
Thoughts, comments, they're also welcome.
I have a question.
Oops, go ahead,
Oh.
Carolee.
Okay, thanks. I just was wondering, you said that as the year went on, you started to see like less concerns about cheating. So is that because like, and did you just find that they got a little more positive, or were there more positive comments that they're not using it to cheat, or?
Yeah, I could answer just to start. The vibe changed.
Ah.
So in the
Okay.
beginning, when first started ChatGPT, no one knew anything about it, and everyone was concerned. The early adopters were seeing the benefits, but the people interacting were not. And then as the year went on, then it became much more interactive, talking about the benefits as people became more familiar and less scared.
Okay,
I think that's
that's
a
interesting.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. And Dr. Ziegler, I think you hit it on the head. I remember those early videos as we were doing the coding and reading and watching every single one. I'm sure you did too. And I remember some of them had legitimate concerns, but those were shorter videos, and it was more of like a, what the heck are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then all of a sudden, like you said, when people dove in, all of a sudden it was, this is what we're going to do. The solutions were unbelievable. I was so surprised. There was a couple of specific presenters who kept teachers that kept putting these videos out, and they had such creative ways. Like for English grade 11, they were teaching all kinds of ways to, like, all right, we put it right up there. They're not getting over on me. There's no way that I don't know that they're using it. So let's address it. Let's make it the elephant in the room as the focus of the subject. And she would use it in her lessons and say, okay, let's put up something that's been created by this. I want you to create it using ChatGPT, and some things without. Compare the two, show me, cite it, all these really creative ways, well beyond that. But it blew me away because I was like, oh, this is a great application. It takes the fear out.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. Jolene?
Yes. Okay. So admittedly, I was anti-generative AI. Okay. It was like, I'm an English major through and through, and I'm like, I had to blood, sweat, and tears get through those words and learn how to write really well. But now that I'm understanding, especially being in this program, how generative AI can be used as a tool. You can use it to help build things, outline things. So now it's helping me even reframe how I interact with, we get a lot of adjuncts who reach out to us and they're like, oh, my students are using AI. So first I start to kind of gently talk to them about how they might want to reframe their assignments, because I've noticed the value in that too, again, from being in this program, that you can situate your lessons or your assignments a certain way to minimize the use of AI. Sorry, getting to the question. How could I best support adjuncts or any professors who feel like they're facing this problem and the best they can do right now is just kind of report them to me? And I'm like, I wish I
It's
could
a
have
great
invited them to
problem.
this.
No, you
Okay,
definitely, we have the problem on campus, and I think Dr. Mason has the answer to that problem.
I can share a little bit about that. So there's a few things you can do, and it's right now we're at the precipice of figuring out all this stuff. This is the wild, wild west, like Dr. Ziegler was saying before. And I think back to a time when the internet was brand new in homes, and we all of a sudden, for me, that was like middle school into high school, and all of a sudden, like nobody was monitoring what we were doing. They just, oh, internet, put you in front of it, you'll be great, you'll be ready for the future, because we just didn't know what to do with it yet. And everybody wants their kids to do their absolute very best and have all of the tools, right? So ChatGPT and these large language models and AI is a big part of that. So in the correlation, it's just a generation later and we have the same type of disruptor, but there's no rules. Now look at how we teach things with the internet, right? We teach kids digital citizenship and all these safety measures right from the beginning. There are policies in place on how and when to use things because we've had time to figure out what all the pitfalls are. The same thing now I think is happening with AI. So it's so new and we've needed it 5 years before it even came out. That's the like in terms of policy and guidance. So right now I know on our campus we have an AI ethics board and advisory board, and we're coming up with policy that's going to be not only based on the ethics of what is expected for the university with academic excellence and things, but also specifically like the answers for using it, let's say in ed tech, are going to be very different than, poetry majors, right? And how that works for people in language arts or in math or computer science. So, there are going to be overarching things. I think for now, the best answers haven't been made, and even Dr. Ziegler, I'm sure, will have some other things to add as well. I don't know that we have the one solve all, but the idea is, talking to your students and or having people, if they have students that they think are using student abuses when it comes to AI, have them meet with their students. You don't want it to become punitive. You don't want it to become I think you did this, you're plagiarizing, and start a whole thing. It puts you in this punitive situation. It also opens up for litigation. There are places that have accused students of doing that, and maybe it came up in like a checker. We know those AI detectors don't work. They absolutely don't work. A lot of what we find are if you put something into Grammarly, that has a relationship now with ChatGPT. So it'll come up in a language detector that it's 100% AI, and it's not. It was student produced, but they were using Grammarly, which is a legal tool or, something they should be using to become better writers. So there are all these different things. I think having the conversation with students is the best. I've done this myself over time and time again. Every time that I'm not sure, I mean, for the most part, it's obvious when someone's using that. So when we talk about it, have them explain it. If the student can't explain what they've done, there's a different way to have that conversation. And maybe they just don't know yet, and that's they're testing out. This is their first time trying to, experiment with it. It's not that they should feel badly for trying to work with a new tool. It's just now let's figure out how to use it as a tool, not the magic 8 ball giving you the answers, and let's find a good way to work with this. So it's more about partnering with that student to have the inclusive conversation as opposed to wag the finger. That's kind of how I look at it. Until there's a policy with things that are a little more definitive and things are less in the gray area, I think that we have to kind of work with our students hand to hand right in the field on it.
That's great advice. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
every faculty member has their own policy, right? Some won't allow it whatsoever. They don't want anyone to use it, and that's their prerogative. And so they should make that clear. It's communication. If you allow your students to use it as a tool, that they can't use it to plagiarize, they have to use their own words. It's a great brainstorming. I look at it, I say, look at these models as having an assistant or someone that is smart, that's your friend, but not really greatly smart, just a little bit smart. So so you do have to check what they do. They're not right there yet, but so you watch them a little bit. That's kind of how I feel about it. I also put in the chat GPT itself has use cases that they publish from university educators. So you can actually ask chat GPT what you should do. It will give you policies that you can include into your class on your syllabus that says whether you agree or not agree, and you just tell chat GPT how you feel, and it will give you a really cool policy that you can include. So in these use cases, people do that. They have the prompts there for you to look at. So that'll help as well. Tiffany?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Hello. So just to kind of add on to what you all were saying about checking ChatGPT or AI. So I teach science and I have an inclusion classroom. So whatever assessments that we use, I'm always trying to make sure that the assessments are developmentally appropriate for my students who have an IEPs, 504s, whatever, whatever. And so I'll use something like Brisk or Magic School AI to, make this assessments a little bit more, I don't want to say easier, but best for their needs, right? And as you said, you always have to check because even if you give the prompt exactly as you want it, sometimes I'm looking and I'm like, that's not what I asked for. I
Right.
really need to you have to really be very specific and then still go in and be even more specific and then still go in and go be more specific to get what you want. So it is a great tool, but you always do have to check and double check like all the time.
And sometimes it's actually better to start a new chat with it. Sometimes when you're going back and forth and trying to refine it and get it what you want to do, and it won't do it, it's better to just start a whole new chat and give it a different prompt. It makes it work differently. Yeah, Carolee, you too. And I see a couple of you shaking your heads. Yeah, and then there's also different versions of ChatGPT. So it depends if you pay for it or not. Some versions work so much better than other versions. Right now, the latest version will work at the lowest possible version that it can until it can't answer your question. And so then it'll move up into a better version for you. So if you do pay, you want to make sure that you're picking the best version. Even if you don't, there's a couple options that you can use to get, because some of them are more research based, etc. I also love DeepSeek. I have become a real fan. I've put in all of my assignments and submissions, student submissions into ChatGPT. I did a sort of a research study without an IRB thing. It's just for my own stuff. So I did it. Now I'm not publishing it. I actually do have an actual publication, like research study that we're working on in the department to look at it as a grading assistant. But I kind of did my own to determine which would be a better model. So I tried ChatGPT versus DeepSeek. And when I tell you the level of expertise that DeepSeek had, I was like, this is just what I would say. Like it scared me. I'm like, oh, it's going to take my job. So, but honestly, it was like too good for me. Like, oh no. But truly, I mean, obviously, it's still not, it's not, it doesn't have the years of knowledge of the teacher, and it also doesn't know the students. That's another thing I find when I see it grading students, and I'm like, you don't know this student. Like, this is not, what you should be giving it. So there's differences in, I guess it's less subjective, but at the same time, I think we need that qualitative component. Sometimes that objectiveness is not, especially when you're looking at projects as opposed to, just something like the test answers. So yeah, that's my answer about using it. I think that's your best bet, is to look online to see what other people are doing. If you're unsure, that's the advice I would give as well to
And
anyone.
if I can add a little bit to that too, there's a lot of courses and a lot of different trainings on prompting, because AI prompting has become its own area of study in a unique sort of way now, because it opens up, we were talking about how certain things, certain maybe jobs or things will somewhat dissolve, but other ones and new opportunities for courses of study and skills will emerge. And this is an area too. Prompting is huge. And there's a lot of good literature out there if you read about what a great way to structure the prompt would be so that it works well with the AI that you're working with, so that it can give you the most quality, in terms of what parts of the question are come first, second, third, etc., for what you're trying to evoke. So there's a lot of great things out there. We don't have time to cover all that tonight, but it's a scratching the surface kind of a thing, piquing your interest and knowing it's out there. I think that's something that we'll continue to study, and as it learns more, as we learn more, and things evolve, we'll continue to have that as something to look into. So
Thank you so much, Dr. Mason. Are there any other additional questions?
Well, those of you working on dissertation research, you might have gotten a little insight into what is involved in qualitative research. You get a little insight there. It isn't, simply just, oh, I'm going to talk to people, or I'm just going to look at data. There's a lot that goes into the time to understand the data. Sometimes numbers in quantitative research make it a little bit easier because the stats do the work for you. You still have to analyze what the results are, but the work that's involved is a little easier in the quantitative side, in my opinion. The qualitative is the time intensive work. But again, what you find, I believe, really makes a big difference in what's happening to really paint a picture. And that's really what I love about qualitative or even mixed methods. Our newest study will be a mixed method study where we're looking at the assessment portion of AI. So that'll be an interesting thing. But again, we're just looking at data.
Dr. Z, I have a question. Dr. Mason, either of you can answer it. Um, we talked about how ChatGPT does not make up anything. It just takes things from what is already available on the internet. Um, do you think that not just ChatGPT, anything AI can ultimately, reinforce some of our biases and stereotypes?
And it makes up stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And it absolutely reinforces stereotypes and biases. I oftentimes will look at when students will use ChatGPT or any of the other models to create images. I often say, have you looked at those images? Do they have a diversity in those images? Oftentimes you ask it to, create a group of people, business people, and you're going to get a lot of, white males in a circle. It's it's kind of what it does. It sees it, and that's what it doesn't think in terms of what's right. It just produces. And so, yes, I think that's very much the case. Dr. Mason, I'll also
100%. 100%. It has its own, it kind of brings out the negative side, I think, at times of what maybe certain stereotypes and biases have been, especially visually. I've seen presentations where even in examples, so I'll be in a training when we were learning about this, and all of a sudden someone's like, okay, let's get a room full of, eager students, and all of a sudden it pops up a whole bunch of white kids with glasses. I'm like, they all look like nerds with pocket protectors and everything. I'm like, that's not what eager students look like, not where I'm from. And so, and not everyone, even just down to not even racially, but just everyone wearing glasses, that equates a student or a really eager student. It was so silly, but I think because it's scouring the internet, it's scouring people's responses. It's kind of reflecting some of our societal biases out because it's only learning from what we've given it over decades, right? Or what it can learn quick enough. So I think in some ways there's two things. One, we have to always double check and reprompt things when we see it so that we get a better picture of what we're looking for and a better thing in the writing. But over time, what's going to happen too is as we know more and we evolve as a society, we'll see better writing out there. We'll see more inclusive teaching practices and different things in our fields. So eventually that reflection of us will change over time. I have hope. It's going to take some time, but remember that too, that as we put out things, it's the evolution. It's just showing us kind of a snapshot over, I don't know, the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, but we're always adding new things and new perspectives. So representation is really, truly important and it matters. So whatever you do, especially as many future researchers are on this call, keeping that in mind and getting that word out and sharing that with people is so, so important. Everyone's perspective is so important so that we have that diversity of thought and experience. It's the only way that ChatGPT will be better and all of us as a result.
Yeah, and you can actually train your model. So my Chat GPT, I train it. First of all, I asked it to name itself, which was an interesting prompt. It gave itself a name and I asked why, and it gave me the reason why, which I won't tell you because I want you to get your own names. So and then it responds to me by signing off by its name now. So, and not all the time, which kind of freaks me out when it does it sometimes. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's your name. I'll tell you, it named itself Ori, Auri, and it gave me this whole explanation why, which I was like, okay, you could go by Ori, you're fine. And then I train it, right? And I tell it, don't use those M dashes. Don't give me bulleted lists ever. I give it default prompts so that in those default prompts, now it will give me results. I tell it to look for bias, to look for diversity. I give it these prompts. So that way I'm not constantly having to watch for it. I still do, obviously, but it's better at it because I'm training it. And you can do the same. I find that it's a lot better as you train it. I don't use my models when I'm doing sort of research. I have to keep it sort of bland so it doesn't know things. But
Right.
when I do use it for actual, grading or lesson creation, whatever it is I'm using it for, it's a lot better that I've trained it. So that's another way that you can help, train our models to be better personally, and they'll be better on a global scale, as Dr. Mason was talking about too.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Great question.
Yeah, really great question. I'm glad we missed it, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think we're at the 7 o'clock hour, Jamal.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Z. Thank you, Dr. Mason, for this wonderful presentation. Again, I'm Jamal Johnson in cohort 12 and also the graduate assistant in the EdTech department. We will have another webinar on November 3rd. It will be from Matt Giordano. It's going to be Faculty Learn How to Dance, Not Wrestle with AI, a set of best practices to ethically introduce AI to your class.